Thank you very much for attending this session, for making the walk over. We're very excited to be able to talk a little bit more about our work with you today. My co-presenters and I, we have a co-presenter here with us, and then co-presenters online. We're going to be talking about what we've been learning over the last 5 years in the LEGO Foundation's humanitarian portfolio that we've been funding, both within the early childhood development space, but also in the primary education space, and how learning can play, what we're learning about learning can play in those settings. I'm not alone. I have co-presenters with me, so hence trying to figure out the technology. And Curry is here with us in person, right here from Brett, and then Grace from the Arab Resource Collective is online with us, and so is Annie from the International Rescue Committee. She's also online with us. We'll be hearing a little bit more from them today. We know today that millions of children in conflict and crisis settings, they're facing unthinkable stress due to conflict, crisis, and natural disaster. We know that this hampers their health, their well-being, their development, and their learning. And we also know, and we're seeing this, it's not an exception anymore in the world in which we live. This is becoming our role. So instability, rapid changes in our day-to-day context. This is something that we're all living with, but especially children living in context of crisis. To address this work, the LEGO Foundation, we have invested systematically hundreds of millions of dollars for children in conflict and crisis settings over the last 5 years. We've supported children birth to the higher primary years, and we believe that learning through play has a lot of value for children in conflict and crisis settings, and that learning through play also needs to be context-driven, where it's helping to lay the foundation for them to become creative, engaged, lifelong learners. And through our work, we have been asking how we can best support some of the world's most vulnerable children on the move to thrive. And we've tried to address this question in 3 key ways. First, we invest in approaches to learning through play in a variety of geographic settings, whether that's in Bangladesh, Lebanon, or Ethiopia. And we also focus our work in a variety of different types of humanitarian settings. So whether that be in acute humanitarian crisis context, which Annie will talk a little bit more about later, and in places where there is political will for refugee integration or prolonged context. Second, we support our partners who are deeply rooted in humanitarian contexts. As lived experience and proximity to children, we aim to support is crucial. And third, we focus on the continuum of children's development, from birth to early childhood into primary education, as well as on the variety of stakeholders that children learn from and with. So that could be siblings, parents, caregivers, teachers, community members. And just briefly, some of the things that we have learned through this work over the last 5 years is we have learned that play is not a luxury in humanitarian settings. It's quite essential. We have findings that are showing, and Gary will also talk about this a little bit later in her video, that play creates a sense of hope. Play also helps to create a sense of normalcy. It's an essential tool to reconnect family. It builds bonds between teachers and students, and it supports children's social-emotional development. And play allows children in conflict and crisis settings to live a childhood that they deserve. So we're super excited about all of these great learnings. We've also learned that in humanitarian context, context is everything. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning. And given the rapid increases and prolongation in humanitarian crises, we need to better understand what works, how it works, for whom, and under what types of conditions, especially as we know that education in emergencies is becoming an underfunded sector, and the needs are so vast. We've identified 3 key mechanisms to enhance what we call clutch power and enable our partners to develop more nuanced understanding of what works to help children learn through play in their contexts and translate that into action. I'm not sure if you folks are familiar with the term clutch power, but it's a Lego universe term. And it's really about how Lego bricks come together and the strength in which they stay together. So the mechanisms that we allow that clutch power to happen, of translating evidence into practice, we have three lessons. First, we support partners to learn how to learn in complex, rapidly changing settings. That might sound pretty obvious, but in contexts in which we work, and our partners will talk a little bit more about this, doing rigorous research is not necessarily the easiest thing. And so we give our partners the space to learn how to learn. Second, we support partners to learn by doing, so to act, reflect, and improve in real time using implementation research. And third, we strive to support our partners to learn together through meaningful communities of practice, and to share what they're learning, not just within the communities that they're working in, but within the wider humanitarian system. So by applying these 3 ingredients, our partners are generating critical insights to help children thrive. And before we get into what our partners will tell us more about the value of learning, we thought we would, let me just mute this. So we thought we would do a little building activity with you all to start thinking about what are some of your promising to kind of create that clutch power of making evidence stick for action. So you've got these tips in front of you, and you're touching them now, right? Yep. What I'm going to ask you to do individually for 3 minutes is build your model of that clutch power. What is that concept that helps evidence stick into practice from your experience or what you've seen? So you're going to build a model that represents that promising practice. It doesn't have to be literal. The most important part of the activity is that you ascribe meaning to it. So if you're not sure how to build, just let your fingers see the building and something will start to generate from that. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to build, and then we're going to share kind of what some of those promising practices are. And we'll ask Eddie and Curie and Grace to also share their thoughts. So get building. You have 3 minutes, and your time starts now. So thank you very much. So I want to see if Grace and or Annie want to come in, and what are some of the, if you didn't have Lego, what would your build have been? Or if you do have Lego, can you share it and give some keywords for your promising practice to make evidence stick to practice? Grace, I'll start with you because you are full.
Yes, I see myself on the screen. Hi guys. So I thought I downloaded an application. Yes, because I think Claire turned the camera. I'm in the only place in my entire life there are no Lego bricks, and I couldn't get some. So, honestly, if I want to build this model, I'll try to be brief. I will have like a very big base, because having a base, whether it's the knowledge, the practice, the experience of like the lessons learned and the challenges that we faced or other people who try to do this, is very important to build upon. It needs to have a very stable base and big, and that base can always get bigger. And on it, at least like on a first layer, we need to have the multiple stakeholders, whether it's our successes, but also the voices of children and parents and caregivers and policymakers who this will affect, because this, at the end of the day, will go back to them, will affect their lives. So they need to have a very loud voice in how this will look like. So this is very important as part of the structure. And
Thanks, Grace. I think we're going to hear from you in a second. Annie, what about you?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, see me?
Yes.
I built this. It's supposed to be a circle, and it's basically, I have Duplos and they didn't want to give me curved edges, so that's okay. But this represents two things. First of all, it's really about iteration when we're talking about learning, a willingness to adapt and change. And to me, that's a circular, iterative process. And that's hard. It is not always easy to have an openness to that. And that's the second meaning for this. It's a round hole because we're open, we are willing to change, we have that openness to make it, to adapting and moving forward. I'll stop there, Paul. Back to you.
Thank you, and I just cut you off for the PowerPoint presentation, so apologies for that. This is not my technology day. That's the way it works in humanitarian settings. You never know what's going to happen. Well, I really appreciate, panelists, you folks talking a little bit more. Carrie, I think we need to move on because we're a bit past time. But what I'd like you to do is, when you're hearing from Carrie and Annie and Grace in their presentations, take your build and keep iterating. If you're hearing things from what they're saying about how play is supportive for children in humanitarian settings, I'd love you to iterate a little bit more in your build and see if your build kind of takes a different shape by the end of this presentation. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to move on to Grace's presentation. We did video presentations, given bandwidth is not always our friend and all that fun stuff. So we're going to switch to Grace now through her video presentation, where she's going to talk more about ARC's work around play and using evidence to integrate that into play-based experiences for children in the Middle East.
Hello, everyone. I am Grace Butros, the Senior Partnerships and Development Coordinator at the Arab Network for Early Childhood and the Arab Resource Collective. It is a privilege to speak to you today on behalf of the Arab region's young children and their families, and share our insights and experiences on integrating play and its significance across all levels of the ECD sector. We must first begin to understand that Arab children have more things in common than their language. Unfortunately, they are all living in multidimensional crisis. They are living through poverty, domestic violence, wars and civil conflicts, and even genocide, political instability, gender discrimination, financial uncertainties, refugee crisis, and climate degradation. Children in Arab countries are not living, they are surviving, and they are being robbed of their childhood. Therefore, our work in the region focuses heavily on providing evidence and data on how these crises affect children and their caregivers, and innovating with our partners by creating holistic, integrative, inclusive, flexible, and adaptable programs that answer their needs. Our goal is to give them back their childhood and ensure they have all their rights. At the heart of this is the child's only job, playing and growing. What evidence do we have, and how are we putting it into practice? ARC's ECD program encompasses the Health Early Learning Protection Parenting Program, HEPPP, and the Ruha Parenting Hub. Both of them target mothers and fathers of children and from pregnancy till 8 years old. After more than 12 years of implementing this program and more than 30 years working on ECD in the region, we understood that play is as integral to parenthood as it is to childhood. Hence the reason we chose the name Ruha, which means swing in Arabic, for our parenting hub. Our approach focuses on this interaction with parents and building on their existing capacities. The videos and games that are available in the digital version of the HUPPP, and present scientific knowledge in a fun, friendly, immersive, and graphical manner are our most viewed and interacted with content. We observed that incorporating play into the sessions, both in the way we deliver the content and by encouraging playful interactions between parent and child, significantly improved the mental health well-being of both. Less sad mood, less parental stress, decrease in children's problematic behaviors, and less bullying and fighting. It also improved the communication within the couple and with the children, and it reduced the use of physical punishment and harsh and manipulative disciplining methods. On the Ujuha platform, our videos and articles showing easy, low-cost activities parents can do with their children are well received on the website and the social media pages. And since its launch in December 2023, the Ujuha library has been a constant attraction for parents who are leveraging their time with their children by reading and listening to open access books and songs. On the other side, ANECD has successfully established and supported the establishment of several national ECD groups and networks, like in Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, and Palestine. And with these national networks, ANECD works on knowledge generation, partnerships, and policy change. We recognized in this the vital role of play and importance of prioritizing childhood and parental support during crises in the Arab region, as highlighted by the findings and numerous recommendations in our strategic research models. These insights are being translated into policy briefs and communication campaigns shared by the national ECD groups and integrated into national ECD strategies that are presented to governments. Now, what more can we do? We hope and aspire to push for policies change and sustainable child-friendly environments, allowing children to thrive and have warm, responsive, and positive early childhood experiences. To achieve these goals, we need long-term sustainable funding that fosters partnerships, helps to scale up existing and impactful programs, and considers the challenges faced when implementing in conflict-torn countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. So has your model changed based on anything that you were hearing from Grace around putting play-based evidence into practice and policy? If not, that's okay. But now we'll move on to Kuri, who has also prepared a video on Brack's play-to-learn models, and we'll learn more about what Brack is learning in Bangladesh.
The important evidence that we are generating about the impacts of learning through play in crisis setting focuses on two of our models and the role of frontline workers in integrating play, mental health, and protection. The first model we want to highlight is the HPL 3-5 center-based model. This model, which integrates cultural play and mental health into the curriculum, has accelerated healing and strengthened children's development outcomes. The findings particularly emphasizes the skills children have acquired in socio-emotional development, cognitive development, communication, and creativity, instilling a sense of hope and optimism about the potential of play-based learning in crisis settings. There's a strong interconnection between cultural play and healing among the children coming to the HPL. Our frontline workers on the ground have observed Rohingya community closely and seen the remarkable difference in children's mental health when they're participating in their cultural rhyme and play. This significantly boosts their confidence and sense of belongingness in a new setting. This speaks volume about the power of contextualization in a crisis setting, especially for a well-being of children. The second model that we want to mention is the caregiver intervention for the fathers and mothers of the children of age 0 to 3 years. Our CAP studies and internal data show the direct impact of play and mothers' mental well-being in a crisis settings. The impact evaluation conducted by NYU Global Ties on fathers' engagement shows the positive effects of fathers creating connection through play and their infants. This directly impacts their mental well-being and leads to a harmonious home environment, less aggressive behavior, and more respectful attitude towards the spouse. The frontline workers are rigorously trained in basic psychosocial skills and have shown positive attributes such as empathy, non-judgmental attitude, and confidentiality while dealing with children and families in crisis settings. We have evidence that shows how the frontline workers contribute to the success of our models on the ground. So in regards to how we have made these learnings stick and put them into practice, I want to say BRAC's continuous engagement with the community and exploration process from the ground has enabled us to adapt new learning in the curriculum and different interventions. We prioritize incorporating the voices of the community, including parents, caregivers, and community leaders, to ensure their endorsement of our work. This leads to a sense of ownership and sustainability, making the community feel included and part of the solution. Cultural reflection in designing interventions, curriculum, play, and healing practices has been at the core of our ethos. At the center of our work, we prioritize children, their well-being, and protection the most, which is reflected in our practice. We want to mention our partnership with Sesame Workshop on integrating culturally integrated watch, play, learn videos into the HPL curriculum. During the integration process, we took feedback from the community people on each episode to make the videos relevant to the Rohingya children. In a perfect world, we want to see a well integration of play and mental health across the education sector for all the children in Bangladesh. We have implemented our play-based model in both humanitarian settings and in government primary schools for the pre-primary level. The government of Bangladesh has acknowledged the positive impact of this model. Later, the government adopted a play-based curriculum for the children aged 4 to 6 years. BRAC has worked very closely with the government in planning and designing of this curriculum and in training the teachers. We are looking forward to seeing the implementation of this model and the positive impact on the children of Bangladesh.
Thanks, Gary. If you have questions for Gary, she's here. And then I'll switch to Annie at the Play Matters project. This is another LEGO Foundation project through East Africa. And she'll talk more with her colleagues about what Play Matters is learning for refugee children in East Africa.
Research is integrated into Play Matters design, including formative and implementation studies, impact evaluations, and also cost analysis. We are aiming through research to understand how to deliver learning through play in different settings across the humanitarian development nexus. For the emergency response mechanism that we carried out in northern Ethiopia, we carried out a series of mixed method studies focused on understanding how the program was working, and that included a set of 5 case studies in 5 different schools where we were implementing the emergency response.
First, our research demonstrates learning through play is important for enhancing children's holistic learning and well-being in emergency settings. In particular, LTP can mitigate the negative effects of exposure to trauma for crisis-affected children. We are also seeing promising signs in our data that LTP can support holistic learning for children affected by crisis and improved well-being for teachers. Our research shows that learning through play method requires and enables safe physical and psychosocial environment. This may require considerable physical repairs to school and classroom address issues. In addition, LTP facilitates a safe psychosocial environment that strengthens the relation between adult children. Child leads to children that appear happier and report increased well-being and are also more engaged in classroom activities. Again, a teacher told us now when we started using LTP, it has strengthened the relationship with our children. Finally, we learned that learning through play is strengthened by focusing on teaching aids and learning manipulatives. The use of teaching learning materials requires creativity on the part of the facilitator to conceptualize and prepare the proper aids, most often utilizing locally available and recyclable materials, and this is feasible even in emergency settings.
It's not always easy to make learning stick, but within Play Matters, we have shared our learnings internally within the consortium, and we have ensured that those learnings are adjusting our programming. We are also designing an emergency pack on learning through play for global dissemination based on the learnings that we've collected, and we'll be sharing that widely in March 2025. We really hope that more and more actors will use our materials and learn from them so that we can improve interventions globally and make them more and more effective. And finally, because the evidence based on learning through play is globally very thin, there is not a lot of evidence, we're disseminating what we're learning as widely as possible to ensure that as many people in the world that are interested in this can learn about it and apply them in their programs. This includes evidence dissemination with government, with other implementers, and also with critical coordination mechanisms such as the National Education Cluster in Ethiopia.
Donors and governments need to encourage implementers to generate evidence. Where projects are being implemented and there is no evidence, they need to inbuild evidence generation so that we can implement projects that are truly impactful. We need to move beyond the idea that it's too difficult to research in emergency contexts. For example, we used a case study design in Ethiopia alongside an analysis of government education data to carry out mixed methods research. As we have done in Play Matters, we need to do more implementation research, learning not only about outcomes and impacts, but also about processes and delivery mechanisms. Leaders across governments, donors, and implementers need to value and prioritize evidence and learning approaches in programming. Without strong leadership, evidence won't always stick. Lego Foundation is already a leader in this space and providing resources to undertake research. Leaders should push for a stance of collaboration over competition. At all levels, strong coordination is needed to disseminate learning for actual uptake of evidence/learnings rather than reinventing the wheel or making the same mistakes. One of the key things that we have learned that learning through play needs to happen in a conducive, safe environment. Through research, we developed the minimum quality standards that measures the safety of classrooms and the environment where children are learning from.
Thank you. And I recognize we're at time. So it is, maybe you can afford me 2 minutes just to recap, and apologies for the technical difficulties again. Our build has changed in the humanitarian portfolio based on these types of learnings that our partners like Play Matters, Play to Learn, or our partners like ARC have been learning. First of all, the topic around children's well-being and their mental health is something that we knew was important for the humanitarian sector. I think we're learning more that play and mental health are crucial, and that's something that we as a foundation, especially in the humanitarian portfolio, we want to do more of, around learning about how does play support children's mental health and their well-being, especially what kind of outcomes and sub-outcomes are we seeing when we couple different types of play practices in well-being programs for children. So that's a first learning, which we're taking into our new strategy, our humanitarian strategy. We also are learning that we need to be more context-driven and context-specific, listening more to our partners, ensuring that we're working more with local partners, and really doing that work to understand how does play, what does that look like from a cultural perspective, but also how do you incorporate culturally sensitive and relevant play practices into the portfolio. We also know that we need to continue to be a donor who provides flexible funding, that's long-term funding in humanitarian settings, and that this is crucial for partners to be able to iterate and adapt and to learn, and also to share these learnings with other partners, especially when we're talking about a sector that's so underfunded with increasing needs for children. These findings might seem really, really simple, but in a context where research has not really been done a lot in the last 10 years in humanitarian settings, where we're where we're really moving towards a trend around academic learning, specifically in humanitarian settings. There's a space for LEGO Foundation and partners to put that voice out that we need to support children holistically, given some of the pressures that we're seeing, either the donors or other policies as it relates to academic learning, and pitting academic learning against things like social development. So this is something that the foundation is really proud to support. It's that how we can support children at the center and the whole child, and we can only do that through partners like you today. So thank you for choosing this session and being here with us. And we're here, Curry and I are both here, so let's start at lunch or the Thank you.